You went to bed at a decent hour. You don't remember waking up. You don't remember anything unusual. But this morning, you're sitting at the kitchen table with your coffee, and something is just off. The tiredness is different. It's not the normal kind. It's the kind that coffee doesn't touch. And you've been here before. You've felt this before. And every time you mention it to your doctor, they say the same thing. You're sleeping enough hours. That's what matters. But here's what I notice over and over again with patients who are over 60 and doing everything right on paper. The hours aren't the problem. What's happening inside those hours is. And what's happening inside those hours for a lot of people is something nobody in their medical care has ever looked at. Not at the kidney appointment, not at the cardiology follow-up, not at the annual physical. There's a window of time, roughly between 11 at night and 5 in the morning, where something can go quietly, seriously wrong with your kidneys. And the remarkable thing is that you can sleep right through it. No pain, no obvious symptoms, just a number on a lab report that keeps inching in the wrong direction year after year, and nobody connects it to the dark hours when it's actually happening. That's what we're going to walk through today, not because I want to worry you, but because once you understand this particular pattern, you'll understand something about your kidney health that most people, and honestly, most doctors, never think to look for. Let me tell you about Howard. Howard came to me through a referral chain that had taken 4 years and 3 doctors. He was 68, retired master electrician from Western Pennsylvania. The kind of man who spent 40 years working outdoors, fixing things other people couldn't figure out, and never once complained about how he was feeling. His wife Linda had moved to the guest room 2 years before we met. Howard called himself the freight train. He thought that was funny. His creatinine, that's the main waste product your kidneys filter out of your blood, had been climbing slowly since his mid-60s, 1.2 to 1.4 to 1.6 over 4 years. Each doctor who saw that chart blamed something: his diet, his blood pressure medication, his age. One told him it was just what happens. Howard nodded, went home, and kept doing what he'd always done. Nobody, in 4 years, had asked him a single question about his sleep. His cardiologist eventually consulted a pulmonologist, almost as an afterthought, near the end of an unrelated appointment. The pulmonologist ordered a home sleep study, a simple device worn overnight that measures breathing patterns while you sleep. Howard's result came back with a number called the Apnea-Hypopnea Index. His was 47. I'll explain what that means in a moment. But when I tell you Howard's story, I want you to sit with that number first, 47, because the normal range is under 5. So what is actually happening to your kidneys while you sleep, and why does it matter so much? Your kidneys are not passive organs. They don't just sit there. They run maintenance cycles. They regulate fluid. They filter. They adjust the balance of minerals in your blood. And they do a significant portion of this work at night when the demands on your body are lower and the repair window is open. One of the most important things that should happen while you sleep is a drop in blood pressure. Not a dramatic drop, just a gentle, natural decrease of roughly 10 to 20% below your daytime readings. Doctors call this dipping, and that dip matters enormously to your kidneys. Think of it this way. During the day, your blood pressure reflects the demands of being awake, moving, talking, digesting, reacting. Your kidneys are working under that pressure all day. At night, healthy dipping is the body saying to the kidneys, relax, repair, filter at a gentler pace. You've earned it. The problem is that for a significant number of people over 60, that dip never comes. Instead of blood pressure dropping at night, it stays flat or it rises. This pattern has a name: non-dipping, or in more severe cases, reverse dipping. And it's one of the most damaging things that can happen to kidney tissue, precisely because it happens in the dark, quietly, night after night, while you're completely unaware. And there's one particular cause of nocturnal non-dipping that I want you to understand, because it's vastly underdiagnosed and almost never discussed at a kidney appointment: obstructive sleep apnea. Sleep apnea, apnea means without breath, is a condition where the airway repeatedly collapses during sleep. The soft tissue at the back of the throat relaxes. The airway narrows or closes, and for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, sometimes longer, breathing stops. The brain detects falling oxygen, fires a stress signal, the body jerks the airway back open, and breathing resumes. and then it happens again. In mild cases, this happens 5 to 15 times per hour. In moderate cases, 15 to 30. In severe cases, Howard's case, more than 30 times every hour of sleep. Howard's number was 47. That means in a 6-hour night of sleep, Howard's breathing stopped or severely restricted roughly 282 times. Every single time that happened, his sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system, activated. Adrenaline spiked, blood vessels contracted, and his blood pressure, which should have been gently dipping through the night, instead spiked repeatedly into readings in the 180s. Not once, not occasionally, 282 times, every night, for years. And here's what that does to kidney tissue. The small blood vessels inside your kidneys, they're called glomeruli, and you have about 1 million of them in each kidney, are extraordinarily sensitive to pressure. They're filtration units. They work by maintaining a precise, stable pressure differential to separate waste from blood. Sustained high pressure over time damages those vessels. Scar tissue forms, filtration capacity drops, and on a lab report, creatinine climbs. Howard's creatinine wasn't climbing because of what he was eating. It wasn't climbing because of his medication or his age or some inevitable decline. It was climbing because 282 times every night, a blood pressure surge was hammering the small vessels inside his kidneys. And nobody had asked him a single question about his sleep. There's a reason this goes undetected for so long, and it's worth understanding because it might explain something in your own situation. Morning lab readings capture a snapshot of where your kidneys are after a night of sleep. A creatinine reading taken at 8 a.m. is reflecting in part what happened between midnight and 5 a.m. So when a doctor looks at a creatinine that's slightly elevated and says, "We'll watch this," they're watching a number that was shaped overnight by blood pressure events they never measured and never thought to ask about. The number looks like a kidney problem, and it is. But the engine behind it is a breathing problem. And those two things almost never get connected at the same appointment. And this is where it gets important for you, specifically, because sleep apnea after 60 often looks nothing like it does in a younger person. In your 40s, sleep apnea usually looks dramatic. The person gasps loudly, thrashes, wakes up choking. It's hard to miss. But after 60, something changes in how sleep apnea presents. The awakenings become quieter. The arousals are incomplete. The brain rouses just enough to restore breathing, but not enough to fully wake you. You don't gasp dramatically. You just breathe shallowly for a few seconds and then resume. From the outside, it can look like normal sleep with some snoring, which is exactly what Linda thought she was watching from the guest room for 2 years. There's another piece of this pattern I want to make sure you understand because it tends to surprise people. Nocturia, waking up to urinate in the night, is one of the most consistent early signs of both nocturnal hypertension and sleep apnea. Most people assume waking to urinate at night is a prostate issue or a bladder issue or just a sign of getting older, and sometimes it is. But here's the physiology that gets overlooked. When your body experiences repeated oxygen drops during sleep apnea episodes, the heart, under increased pressure, releases a hormone called atrial natriuretic peptide. This hormone tells the kidneys to produce more urine. So the brain wakes the body up to urinate, not because the bladder is full, but because the kidneys were told to make more fluid. Waking once at night is common. Waking 2 or 3 times, night after night, and always feeling like you need to go, that's worth paying attention to. Especially if it's combined with morning fatigue that coffee doesn't fix, or a creatinine that's been slowly trending upward. These aren't 3 separate complaints, they're 3 pieces of the same picture. Have you ever asked yourself why you feel more tired on mornings after a full night of sleep than on mornings when you went to bed later? That inversion, where more sleep produces more fatigue, is one of the quieter signals. Because the hours were there, the repair wasn't. So what does this look like in practice? And what can you actually do? The first and most important thing I want you to take from this is that the questions that reveal this pattern are almost never asked in a standard appointment, but they're simple. And the people who can answer them most accurately are often the people sleeping in the same room, or, in Howard's case, the same house. 3 questions. You can even write these down. First, Does the person snore loudly enough to be heard through a closed door or from another room? Not occasional snoring. Consistent, loud snoring on most nights. Second, has anyone ever observed them stop breathing, even briefly, during sleep? A pause, a gasp, a moment where the breathing just cuts out and then resumes. Third, do they wake 2 or more times per night to urinate regularly, not just after drinking more fluids, but as a pattern? 2. Yes answers out of those 3 means the conversation with their doctor should include a sleep study, not an optional conversation. A specific request: I'd like a referral for a sleep study to evaluate for obstructive sleep apnea. You can say exactly that. Write it down if it helps and bring the paper to the appointment. A home sleep study is simple. It's not the old kind where you slept in a lab with wires all over you. It's a device worn on the wrist and finger for one night at home in your own bed. The results are read by a pulmonologist or a sleep specialist and scored within a few days. If sleep apnea is found, the most common treatment is a CPAP machine, continuous positive airway pressure. It delivers gentle, steady air pressure through a mask while you sleep, keeping the airway from collapsing. I know the reputation CPAP has. I've heard every complaint. The mask is uncomfortable. It feels claustrophobic. Partners find the sound annoying, though usually less annoying than the snoring, it turns out. Modern CPAP machines are quieter and smaller than they were even 5 years ago, and the modern masks are designed for compliance, meaning they're designed to actually be worn through the night. Howard hated his CPAP for the first 2 weeks. He almost quit 3 times. Linda bought him a new mask style that covered less of his face, and something shifted. He started waking up feeling different. Not dramatically different at first, just less like he'd fought something overnight. 3 months after starting CPAP, his creatinine dropped from 1.6 to 1.4. 6 months, 1.3. He didn't overhaul his diet. He didn't change his medications. He didn't start a new supplement or a new exercise program. He just started breathing through the night. The second thing worth discussing with your doctor, especially if your blood pressure has been called controlled, but you're still seeing creatinine drift, is something called ambulatory blood pressure monitoring. This is a cuff worn for 24 hours that takes readings throughout the day and night. It captures what your regular office readings miss entirely, the nocturnal pressure. If your nighttime readings are not dipping or are actually higher than your daytime readings, that's a specific finding. And it changes how your blood pressure management should be approached. Some medications are more effective when taken at night rather than in the morning, precisely because of nocturnal hypertension. This is a conversation your doctor needs to have with your specific numbers in front of them. But the conversation can only happen if someone runs the 24-hour monitor and looks at the overnight data. Most people have never had this test. It's worth asking for by name: 24-hour ambulatory blood pressure monitoring. The third thing, and this one requires no doctor's appointment, is to look back at your recent morning labs, if you have them. Creatinine, blood urea nitrogen. That's another waste product, sometimes called BUN. And your GFR, which is the estimated filtration rate your kidneys are running at. If those numbers are consistently worse in the morning than in afternoon or repeat readings, that asymmetry is worth noting. Bring it to your next appointment and ask, could my morning numbers be reflecting something that's happening overnight? That question alone can open a door that stays closed in most standard visits. And for the people watching this who have a partner, a spouse, a family member who snores and is tired and has a creatinine that's been quietly climbing, you might be the only person who's noticed all 3 pieces. Sometimes the most important thing a person can do for someone they love is say, I've been watching, and I think we should ask about your sleep. Howard told me, about a year after we started working together, that he wished someone had asked him about his sleep at the very first appointment. Not because it would have been easy to hear, but because 4 years is a long time to let something go undetected that had a simple answer. His creatinine is stable now. Linda is back in their room. He still jokes about being the freight train, but he says the freight train is running a lot quieter these days. There's a moment that happens in the body every night, just as blood pressure starts to fall, when the kidneys catch their breath. It's a small moment. It happens without any drama. You're unconscious when it occurs, but it's one of the most important moments in your physiology. Because it's when the repair happens. You went to bed at a decent hour. Your kidneys were waiting for that window to open. Now you know what it takes to let them have it. One thing worth thinking about as you go through your next few days, your kidneys and your blood pressure are in a much closer conversation than most people realize. And understanding how that conversation works, especially after 60, changes what you know how to watch for and what you know how to ask. If what we talked about resonated with you, consider subscribing. There's a lot more of this kind of conversation coming, and the next piece of it builds directly on what you learned today. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.